Right, so in today's video, we're going to be doing a full renovation on this lawn. Now, if you've been a frequent viewer of this channel over the last few months, you'll know that this lawn usually looks like it's in a better condition than what it is in today. You can see it's a little bit long. We've got this hole here, which the dog has dug. We've got a little bit of stuffing from dog toys where the dog has been dismembering his toys on the lawn, and it is sort of in a bit of a state of neglect, you'd say, at the moment. I'm going to show you all the steps in today's video as to how you can actually completely renovate your lawn this autumn. Now, if you're watching this video in the spring, you can renovate then as well, because spring and autumn are the two best times to actually getting on and renovating your lawn. But arguably, autumn is the best because the temperatures are more consistent. They are a little bit warmer than what they are in the spring, and you are almost guaranteed to have brilliant germination and plenty of watering from the rain too. So the first step is to get on with your lawnmower and to scalp it. So that just means to cut it as low as you possibly can. So there we go, the lawn has been scalped as low as possible, and as you can tell, it's actually looking pretty decent at the moment despite it being scalped, and that's because the sward is quite tightly packed on this lawn, and that's mainly because this lawn has been cut on quite a low setting for the entire year. Now, step number 2 is to get on and scarify your lawn, and that just means to rip out all of the thatch from your lawn. So you can see on the Scarifier, we've got these blades here, and what they're designed to do is to cut into the soil and rip out any of the dead matter. And you'll notice when I get on now onto this lawn, it does make it look a bit of a mess, but sometimes your lawn's gonna look worse before it can look better. My one piece of advice would be not to drop it to the lowest setting possible to begin with. What I'll do is I'll get it on 0, and I might do another pass on -3, just depending on how much thatch comes out the lawn. So you can see, if we get close to the lawn now, what it's done is ripped out all of this dead matter, and what this is doing is it's sitting just on top of your grass layer between your grass and your soil. And what it can do, thatch, is it can prevent the nutrients and things getting down into the soil layer and actually giving the grass the nutrients and things that it needs. So all we've got to do now is get on with a leaf rake all this up, and then do it a second pass to get off as much thatch as we can. You can just see how much thatch is actually there, and that's only from, you know, one pass of the lawn, and it's not even the entire lawn. This is probably about 1/3 of the space we're working with, and even though the lawn looked relatively decent before we started, you can see there's a lot of dead matter there that does need to be removed. And just a word of warning, if you haven't scarified your lawn before, you're going to have substantially more than what I've got in my basket when you come to do yours, because if you've not done it for years or never at all, loads of dead matter is going to come out. Now I'm going to go on the lawn again with the Scarifier, but this time I'm going to drop the setting down to -3, which is now going to dig a little bit deeper into the actual soil layer. So if you're ever wondering why your lawn isn't nice and lush and green and it's struggling to actually react to any fertiliser, then you can see it's this sort of stuff, the thatch, that is getting in the way. And you know, at least 2 or 3 times a year, getting on with a Scarifier to remove this is just going to enable the rest of the lawn to be able to breathe. And I'm going to do one last pass with the lawnmower just to hoover up any of the leftover thatch that's sitting on the lawn. You can see after actually mowing it again, just hoover up the rest of the thatch, how much is actually there. So if we have a look at the lawn now, especially if you come from sort of like a top-down view, you can see the soil in amongst the grass blades now, and even particularly towards the back here, there's a lot more soil knocking about, and this lawn is now ready for an overseed. But before we do, we're just going to fill this hole in with a little bit of topsoil. If you do have any spaces in your lawn like this one down here that, let's say, you know, a dog's dug up or something, you do not want to put any compost in there, because eventually that's going to break down over time and it's going to go back to the divot that you originally had. So your best bet is to get in there with a bit of topsoil, ideally a mix of sand and topsoil, just so that it maintains the same level once you compact it down. Right, so the next step of the renovation is to get on with some grass seed. So I'm going to overseed this space. It is the exact same grass seed that I used to actually seed this lawn originally. It's the A1 Lawn Premiership Pro Mix. So when I first originally seeded this from scratch about, you know, a year and a half ago, I used this mix. Then I used it again early on this spring just to give it an overseeding and a renovation, and I'm going to do the same today. However, I'm only going to go on with a small amount of grass seed, and that's because the lawn is already relatively thick, but there are some spaces knocking about where it could be a little bit thicker now that I've ripped out that thatch. What I could do is go around and just overseed particular patches of the lawn, but the only reason why I'm not going to do that is because when the seed comes through, when it's in its infancy, it's a slightly different shade of green compared to the more mature blades that are knocking about. So if I only overseed certain patches, then they're going to look a little bit lighter compared to everything else. Whereas if I give everything a light overseeding, then hopefully I should have a nice even colour of green as the younger blades mix and blend with the more mature blades that are already there. Now, you are supposed to put an exact amount down on your lawn when you are overseeding, but I just eyeball it and go with what has worked for me over the past few years. So if you are seeding a brand new lawn from scratch, so you're talking just soil knocking about, then you're going to want to put your drop spreader on the highest setting, which on this Scott spreader is 18, and do about 3 or 4 passes. Just make sure there's a really heavy distribution of seed. However, if you are only overseeding like I am today, I'm still going to put it on 18 so the grass seed can actually fall through. Because of the shape of the grass seed, sometimes it's awkward if you don't put it on a high enough setting. And I'm only going to do 1 pass, just to make sure it's only a light overseeding. So you can see it's only a small amount of seed, but it does fill in those patches, and that's just going to give us a nice even distribution across the rest of the lawn. And before I get on with the rest of the renovation down at the bottom, I just want to show you how this lawn is looking now. Now, this lawn was renovated completely from scratch, and when I mean completely, I mean I killed this off and seeded it from the beginning. So if you are looking to actually reset your lawn by killing it, leveling it and then seeding it, all the videos are on my channel. So I have seeded this space by hand where the hole actually was, just so there's more seed on it compared to the rest of the lawn. And the last thing I'm going to do is get on the lawn with a little bit of compost, just to give a nice little dusting over the top of those seeds, just to avoid any bird take. Now, I only have the 1 bag of compost today, and I've got about 3/4 of a bag of topsoil, so fingers crossed it's going to be enough just to cover this lawn just in a really light dusting of topsoil and compost. And in case you are wondering, a rake like this is going to set you back around about 35, 40, 50 quid, something like that, in either Toolstation or Screwfix. Got it a couple of years ago, so I'm not 100% sure how much it was again, but it's around about that cost. There we go, the rake has brought a lot of the bigger pieces of wood and things together, so I can take these off the lawn because these will take a little bit too long to decompose. I'll chuck them in the flower beds. You can actually see as well how quick it actually is to rake around the compost using a rake like this. So I'm hoping that the 3/4 of topsoil is enough to do the other part of the garden. If it's not the end of the world. No one's going to die if I don't finish up at the end and I'm not going down to the garden centre just for an extra bag to do an extra, you know, metre strip along the lawn. I get a lot of comments sometimes of people with different bits of advice and question some of my methods, and it's in the name, novice gardener. I'm not proclaiming to be an expert at any of this. All I know is I've used these techniques for a few years now, and it's really helped me to get, you know, half decent lawns. These aren't stones, by the way, they are little clumps of clay. Just lash them to the side. So you can see there is a massive colour difference between the compost and the topsoil. And that's because the topsoil is, you know, made up of quite a lot of sand. It's quite a dry mix, whereas the compost has got much more organic matter in there. Because like I said before, it's designed to break down and give whatever plants you're feeding a bit of nutrients, a bit of a boost of growth. Although I have gone with compost and topsoil as a bit of a mix, it doesn't really matter, you know, in terms of what you put down. There is more of a nutrient content within the compost itself, which is really good for the established plant that's there. The topsoil isn't really going to do anything for the established plant because most of it is sand. But for overseeding, either can be used as a top dressing. Now, in terms of next steps, what you need to make sure you are doing over the next 2 or 3 weeks is just making sure you keep the soil moist, because if you let the seeds dry out, then you're going to have some poor germination. But if you keep the soil moist, you keep those seeds moist, you can have germination really fast. Now, like I said at the start of this video, if you are doing it in the spring, germination will be a lot slower because the temperatures are a lot cooler. Whereas if you're doing it in autumn, like I am now, then the temperatures are more consistent. We've got quite a lot of rain to go with that too, and that'll just mean really good germination. So I won't be surprised if in around about 10 days all of the seeds are off to a cracking start and the plants are starting to come through. And then I reckon within maybe about 3 weeks, the lawn's going to be really established, and it's going to give it a really strong footing then for going into winter, which will make the actual renovation next spring a whole lot easier. Right, so before I sign off, I do want to say that next week I'm going to be posting an autumn lawn care video, and I'm going to be explaining everything you really need to be doing over the likes of September, October and November, just to give your grass sort of the best fighting chance to survive and to cope well over the winter. So that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to check out any of my other videos, such as any of my lawn care tip videos or the renovation that I've done on the lawn at the top and the back garden recently, then you can head over to my channel. I've got a garden renovation on there too, and if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. And finally, thanks for watching.